resume the recording, is that we're going to be diving into retention strategies. And we're also going to be having a discussion where I kind of want to move it around, outside of your classroom, what sort of communication tools do you use or that might be at your disposal in terms of communicating with your coaches, with your members, your coaches communicating with your members. I understand everyone has different size gym. And so I just hope that you can kind of come off here and just have a way to evaluate your retention and be proactive with engaging your members, and then also have some ideas with different platforms out there, and all. So Vince has not yet jumped on, but really,
I'm here.
There you are. Yeah. But with that said, Vince Miceli, he's based out of New York, and he's been an affiliate owner for over 10 years. He also has an interesting story that just through a discussion, he founded a company called The Verb, which is a communications platform. And it was based on his need for doing that in his affiliate. So I'm going to be having him chime in. And again, if it's like crickets, I'm just going to give the baton to him. But I'm excited to have him here today. Also, one thing I wanted to acknowledge with respect to retention. First off, can someone just define retention in layman's terms? Or I could share you my perspective. I have a couple different ways of spinning what retention is without it being like, coming from, a dictionary.
I'll go.
You'll go? What's your take on that?
Folks, I think I have a different definition of it. I look at retention as if we are net neutral or one member more than I was in a previous measurable time, then my retention is doing what it needs to do. That's how I look at it. But like the layman's term is retention is how long you keep someone doing a certain thing.
Yeah. I like that. I think also to be really positive about that too, it's like a lot of times we can be reactive to the data we're using and being like, oh crap, like a member's leaving and canceling. And I'm sure you're tracking that. But how can we be proactive with adding value, engaging members so that people don't want to leave? And I also look at it as, how do you deepen the connection, your member in your community? And I don't want to sit here and start going off like preaching about this, but the number one retention tool strategy is your class. Not even saying coaching yet, but I'm saying it's that 0 to 60 minutes of someone coming in the door and having a fun, great experience, however you're going to define that, and keep them coming back, chomping at the bit and feeling FOMO when they're not in that class. And I see our role as an owner into the coaching and building our coaching teams, or you might have a manager who's in charge of that, but I see it as looking at our classes from that perspective. And then we can get into the weeds of all the different strategies that we can go into. But if we're not doing, it's kind of like the level one, doing the commonly well, or whatever, or doing the basics and getting down the basics first, then all that other stuff is just fluff and it's just like busy work. So I think that it's easy for us to come together because I don't know about any of you here on this call, but we've all been coaches at heart at some point. Are really passionate about that, I will assume. And that's why we opened our gym. And that's the fun stuff with working with the coaches teams and working on what you're actually giving the members. Our core offering is that class. So yeah, my hope is that you guys will get a little perspective on that. Really quick question. And for those of you who have your cameras on, I'm interested because I can't see anyone with their cameras up. Who here takes classes at their affiliate that are obviously not the ones you're coaching? Cool. That's good. And I say this too, because I don't want to be sitting here like on my high horse, because I know we all have limited bandwidth as owners, but that's like a very good assessment. When was the last time you dropped in at a local affiliate, had a connection with an owner, and you've seen how they've run their classes? Okay. Yeah. Who here has gone to a summit? Cool. The summit might be a starting point. If you're in the Northeast, I'm trying to do smaller local meetups to connect, but there's such a tremendous value by being connected with your neighbor and going to check out their affiliates. And I'll be honest, I recently have been doing a lot of drop-ins locally. And when you go in with a different set of eyes of what the experience is like, it can also make you take a step back and see like, where can I tighten my holes at my affiliate? Who here focuses on putting time into developing their coaches? Yeah. And if you don't, you probably should. But that's another thing. And so those are really simple things to hone in. And again, this call isn't about developing your coaches and stuff, but if you think that you're doing awesome with that, it's like asking someone who's been driving a car for 30 years, are you a good driver? Everyone's going to say, hell yeah. And we all know those really crappy drivers. Not saying that goes out to anyone here, but I think it's always good to take a step back and just assess that. So yeah. So I didn't want to go into all the nuts and bolts and not stress that is your basics here. So with that said, I just want to pivot really quickly before we dive in to what numbers do we look at when we're looking at retention besides your churn. Your churn rate, it's already happening. There's people leaving. But what are other metrics that you're looking at monthly or weekly? And if you aren't looking at numbers, this is a good call to be like, I should start looking at numbers. But secondly, I want to kind of just give a little insight on that. Vince, if you want to jump in on this and go for the kill, you can do this, because I'm sure everyone on this call is sick of listening to me talk. But yeah, I have some ideas to share, but Vince, if you had any.
So if anyone's been an affiliate owner for longer than 5 years, I'm not too sure what people talk about now, but like the standard question was like, oh, how many members do you have? Like that was the measure of success. It was the first thing that people asked. And it was the first thing everybody, class attendance, 100%, like judged other owners on. When I opened, it was like, how many members do you have? You have 70? Oh, you suck. Oh, you have 250? Oh man, you must be fucking killing it, right? And because of my previous career, I'd never measured my gym's success or health by my membership count. I measured it by my recurring revenue first, and then my gross revenue in the previous month. It's just the way that I wrap my brain around it. I knew, God bless you, if my scheduled revenue was going to be 20K for June, right? My scheduled, recurring memberships, and I ended May at, let's say, 27K. That means I'm either signing up new memberships in May, or I'm selling punch cards or drop-ins or retail at a higher rate than my like baseline membership. And the way that I always measured the important numbers were that those numbers were moving up in a track up. They might not always move up, but as long as over month that they were moving upwards, that was really important to me. And then the second one that I looked at the most besides that number was my class attendance, because if my class attendance didn't at least come close to make sense based off my general membership count, it meant that I was selling a product that people who paid to be here didn't want to be here to take. And that's not counting the like twice a week people, right? Like you want your core membership to be like 4 times a week here, and probably be happy at that number. And so that class attendance, I always looked at compared to my overall membership. So those are like the 2 ways that I generally measured the success of the business early on. And there are downsides to that I didn't know that were also important, but those for me were how I always looked at growth year over year.
Yeah. Layla, you had mentioned class attendance as well. Was this by the month? Was it by week? Was it percentage based?
We look at class attendance every week on Tuesdays, just to see who's missing, how many times people are coming, and so we can reach out to them and see why they're not in class. Because if you see people continuously on that list that haven't been in class, you can just expect their cancellation to come. And sometimes you can head that off by, speaking to them about why they're not there.
Yep. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, another metric is to look at class attendance weekly and base it off a percentage of your actual membership. So when you have your reoccurring, I always, like Vince, and I'm sure majority of you, I look at my revenue and membership based on reoccurring revenue. And so basing off who has an active membership and the attendance weekly. Best Hour threw out a stat and they were saying that should be 60% or at least above 50% of your membership. And it would vary too as you get larger, but that was for about 100 members. But if you're not hitting that, these numbers are ways to identify like where it is that you might be having an issue. It could be looking at attendance based on a coach. You might have that one coach, depending on how many classes you have on your schedule, that is very low attendant. And that if you're looking at that and another coach who's really high attendant, that might mean there might be some class planning or some other things to work with that one coach with the lower attendant classes. But it's just ways to kind of figure out what's going on and get your pulse on things. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think looking in terms of attendance is huge with being proactive and knowing your numbers. So if you don't know your numbers, I would suggest, using your software, and starting to run reports on that. Vince, is there anything on that you wanted to add in?
Yeah, I think that those numbers are like, I'll call them the back of the napkin, easy to do what's happening. There's other ways that I think people smarter than me or lend themselves to this could utilize. And depending on what CMS you're using, which is like a MindBody or a Push Press or a Wodify or whatever one of those is, there's other numbers that you could pull out, which is like, you could look at not just the class attendance for somebody, but you could like look at it from a frequency of the month for a person, right? Like, say someone does take 2 weeks off, but they're still coming to the gym 14 times a month, and I'm using an extreme, they might not be on the fringe of leaving, right? And so you could look at that overall frequency of attendance month over month on a person. And then the other thing I do like, and I think this goes into something you might talk about later, but I do like to, on a personal level, I'm not like a big shouter outer in class or like, but I like to, on a personal level, if I notice someone's coming up on 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, like to actually acknowledge that person in a real way, because at the end of the day, like, I'm just going to use a random person here, and it's only because Katie's writing and it caught my attention. Like, Katie is a person who has her whole life outside of the gym. And for the 1 hour a day I see her, we have our interaction, but like she has her shitty or awesome life that she deals with. And if I can treat her as a human, be like, hey, Katie, like, I noticed this week was 5 years for you here, and genuinely care and say thank you. There's something else that I do that is definitely outside of the box, but I'm going to guess everyone is charging somewhere between $150 and $250 a month for a membership, right? Like, that's a big window. But, if there's 30 of us in here and you're all paying me $200 a month to come to my gym, and I happen to see Katie out for dinner and I genuinely pick up her dinner for $200, while that sounds expensive in that one instance, that will almost ensure she will stay a member of mine for like another 3 or 4 years, right? And I've run this over the like course of a decade, where in a local town, I live in a small town that has 10,000 people. Like, it's pretty easy for me to bump into people out or see a husband or a wife or kids and be able to genuinely say thank you for something that in the moment actually doesn't cost a lot, right? And then I actually try to keep track of that. Like, I'm like, oh, like I did take care of Katie and I was able to show her a kindness, and like that kind of just goes into my book, that I know that she's on my list of people that I've like shown a genuine thanks from in a way that is more than like a random Christmas card.
Yeah. Well, Vince, can we backtrack? Because I think it's so easy to put your finger on the pulse and be connected when you have a small community. And I just, I'm sure on this call, we have maybe memberships that are 50 people to maybe 300, but can you share, Vince, like where you're at with your affiliate, like what were some of the challenges you experienced when you were, say, under 100 people, like how you kind of changed And I know this is a lot to unpack, but also technology is changing so much that it's like, and to scale things, I'll do a disclaimer here, but like as a rep, when I'm supporting 1,000 people, I want to be personal. I want to drop into every gym and provide what you would just provide to Katie at that dinner. And for us as owners, it's not reasonable to expect all of us to be able to provide that sort of personal interaction all the time. So yeah, and I think that would be a good segue too, to kind of give us some background, Vince, on where you found a challenge and where your platform kind of helped you out with that.
Yeah. So I've been through a lot of iterations in my affiliate. The first year that we were open, which was 2014, for context, I took home $9,000, right? Like for the entire year. So when like for any of the affiliate owners that are like at that phase where you maybe aren't paying yourself or like you're kind of paying yourself, the first 4 years of our business were really odd because, you know, you think about like taking home $9,000 or $20,000 a year, there's not much that can happen there, especially if it's your main job, right? So I had never coached a person. I'd never trained a person. I had never done a class of CrossFit in my life. I'm the exact kind of person probably all of you are shaking your head at right now that like should never have opened affiliate ever, right? The first day I taught a class was the first day we opened. And my entire business plan was like babysit adults for an hour, don't tear ACLs, figure it out, right? And when we opened, typical, coached every class till I could build in staff. And like we've gone from, you know, $6,000 a month in revenue up to 15 before COVID, back down to 1,500 a month in revenue, and then back again, right? So I've done everything in between, lost the whole business and kind of brought it back. And you know, one of the things that when I was really small, I only had one goal, which was I had to figure out, this is like, I wanted to figure out how to pay the rent and the gas and electric. And if I could figure out how to pay rent and gas and electric, then like, if I could go find one personal training client, then I could eat. And that was what my first goal was. So for anyone who's like a newer affiliate, you could probably still get away with this. And older affiliates, you could do it as like an ad campaign. I didn't run an ad. I didn't do anything, but I actually just gave out flyers in my town. And it was like, yeah, I think at the time, generally affiliates were like $169 a month, like to join, or maybe $159. But I did like, you know, brand new gym, whatever, $100 a month for the first year. And I just ran that special until I paid the bills of the building. So like once I paid the bills of the building, then that's when that special went away. And I just sold that as much as I could until I could just be even. And then from there, I was like, cool, now I'm even. I'm not going to drown. Now let me go sell a normal membership. Right. And that was my first strategy. When it was really grassroots, it was actually much simpler. You know, you have 4 classes a day. I then kind of did nothing the rest of the day, as opposed to like think about my process and things like that. But the early days, Danielle, like it was just get to even, and I shook it down however I could. I like walked stores. I like messaged old friends. I mean, I literally asked every single person I knew if they wanted to join. And that was like how I got to, and that was $7,000 a month, just so you guys could like get an idea. Like my rent was $5,000, my utilities were $2,000. I was like, okay, I'm going to sell it. And that's ignoring like MindBody and internet and all the other things. But like, that was my first equation. If I can get to like $7,000 a month, I could like figure out the rest.
And basically, based on that information, guys, you could now get an idea that Vince was the face of his gym. His retention strategy, aside from selling memberships for growth, but his actual retention strategy hinged on him as a person. And if you can identify with that, being like, that's a place you don't want to be for too long, and it's the hardest place to get out of. So, you know, at that point, it's a lot easier to have your pulse on the community because you're there all the time. So when you pivoted from that, Vince, and now you go into your coaching team, what were you relying on? And I just preface this by saying, because in a lot of the discussions I'm having with owners, they're trying to figure out what sort of systems they can have with consistent reach out or a consistent process for outreach to members, for acknowledgement and recognition of certain milestones. But at what point did you pivot in being like, I need to use my management software or my coaching team to do this? When did the wheels start falling off the bus if they started to?
Yeah.
And anyone who wants to chime in too, like if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm there, or I want to share, please just chime in, raise your hand. You could be old school like that. But
I hope the comment I make actually spurs someone to join in. So I've never, up until last year, I never sent a lead email. I did not have a lead funnel. We did not run ads. I had no formal outreach. At the time, I don't think MindBody had them. And then we went to Pike 13, or Front Desk, which became Pike. Either way, like I had never done like drip campaigns. I didn't do lead follow-ups automatically. I was about as analog as you could get when it came to that sort of thing. And one of the ways that I had approached outreach or new business or member retention and relationships differently than I think most people think about it now is I very early on started empowering my staff to own those relationships, which is a really scary thing because staff members typically are pieces of shit and will walk away and take all their members and blah, 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 right? Like that whole horror story you hear. And I have found more than not, it's not the case. But early on, I had started empowering my staff to manage 40, 50, 60 people within the building. So that way I did not have to be the linchpin or the fulcrum for 150 members or 100 members, which is like, that's why it's the magic number, because any one of you could navigate 150 people like from memory. And that's why that's that magic number, like get to north of 100 and you'll be good, because any owner could kind of navigate that on their own. And we
wait,
started.
Vince, can I pause right there? Katie, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
I'm just curious that you said you have been able to empower some of your staff to handle a chunk of your membership. How are you empowering them to do that? Is that just a part of their coaching expectations, or are you paying them specifically to do that task?
Yeah.
How are you holding them accountable to it? Like what does the logistics of that look like?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. I'm gonna ask you one question first, because it'll help me understand. Does your staff still lie to themselves that they can like be a competitor?
Ours? No,
Yeah.
we're not a competitive gym.
I have both, right? Like we have competitors and non-competitors. The reason I asked that is early on, as I started hiring coaches, it was at a time like an accountant could still go to the games, right? And like we all wasted our whole day working out and blah, blah, blah. So, but
but we do have families now, some of us. So that is another thing. But yeah.
So what I did is some of my earlier staff that they knew they wanted this to be a career, weren't sure what that actually looked like, and weren't ready to leave their main job or what they were doing. The way that I would do it is I always chunked out the day. So if you were a morning coach, you were never a night coach, and vice versa. That did a couple of things. The first thing that it did is it allowed people to actually be human and not be a slave to being in the gym, because you could like go to bed and get up and do like the 5, 6, 7, and 9:30. And that's a full day, right? If you're coaching that, like that's your fucking day. If you were to coach 5:30 at night, you'd probably have to go home and take a nap, and it'd still probably be lackluster at best. So the first step that I did was that like people owned their time slots. And I started that with like the people that I knew were not morning people. I didn't set them up for failure. They just never coached in the morning unless it was an emergency, right? Now, there's two problems with that. The first one is it's hard to give people full-time work if you're only shifting people out on half the day. But at the same time, it costs more to us to navigate that correctly. And that's a whole different conversation we can have. But so step one was to get people like locked into time zones, because then what would happen is if let's say that I open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Tuesday, Thursday, I come in at 6 instead of 5 a.m. and I do like the 6 a.m. and the 7 a.m. Let's just say that that's generally my schedule. I, by default, will build real relationships with those 5, 6, 7 a.m. classes. That's a very specific type of person that comes. So like I, by default, over a 3 or 4 month period, I'm going to build a relationship with those people and will never even know the people who come at 5:30, 6:30, 7:30 at night, unless that's also when I work out. So a lot of my staff, right? Some of my staff don't even know some of the morning members. Now that we could have a criticism on my ability to do community events. And again, that's a different conversation. So step one was I lopped people off into the time zones that they actually could be the best at. Then keeping them in that by actually incentivizing people, not by like, hey, good, you should be managing these relationships, but incentivizing people to want to be better. And I don't mean like, oh, if you have full class, like actually sit with someone and be like, okay, hey, you're a coach, you're an L1. Do you want to get your L2? You do? Cool. By when? End of the year? Awesome. Like if we can get you to your L2, we'll absorb half of that cost and then we'll give you a raise in your class. Cool? Awesome. And then like, once you get your L2, what's your goal for next year? This is your goal for next year? All right. If we make that goal so it's mutually beneficial, I'll then overpay on that as well. So now what ends up happening is they're not being tricked, but like you're bringing them to the river to drink. You're showing them there's going to be water there. They're by default going to be more polite to the other people at the river drinking. And what I mean by that is like, you've now taken someone, you're like, look, you're a morning person. Come in. I want you to help own the mornings with me. This is what we're going to pay you per class or salary or whatever that arrangement is. Help them build out the next 2-3 years with them so that they can see something more than just being a random hourly coach. And what'll end up happening is they'll actually start to take ownership of those classes. Like they will feel like that's their class. And what that allows you to do is you don't have to then navigate 150 members on your own. Like they will do that on their own when they're like, man, like Richard hasn't come to class in 2 weeks. Like I need to call him. He hasn't been at my 5 a.m. And they're going to start doing it on their own. What'll then happen is you could then drip out like, hey, have you been like, do you like upkeep if you don't see someone for a while? And they're like, no, why would I do that? And you're like, well, like, think about it. You have a really good relationship with Richard. Like, I know that you guys, you know, you go fucking play softball on the weekends or whatever it is they do outside the gym. Like, wouldn't you want to make sure that they're doing what they need to do? And then they kind of like by default start taking that ownership on their own, especially if they're interested in having a career in our industry.
So you are not necessarily paying them additionally for that.
No, I'm not going to be like, look, I need you to call members on the side and I'm going to give you $3 a phone call or something like that. Like that's
or
me,
like an hourly rate or something like that. Like if you do this, you sit down for 2 hours every Wednesday and you are the reach out person.
Yes, that is like, so this is going to be an unpopular opinion. I do not love hourly work that is not specific to coaching.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being is this, is that employees and employers have a very unique relationship that most often than not is not symbiotic. It's mostly counterproductive. It's like mostly like this, right? So like, if you're like, hey, Richard, you need to like 2 hours a day. Like I want you to go follow up with your clients. And I'm going to pay you for that, but like, you need to do that. And I need to know that you're doing that. It actually becomes less genuine from Richard and the client's going to know it. And that defeats the purpose of them being able to navigate a relationship, because like really good retention at our level of an affiliate is a genuine retention. It's not like I want Richard to come to the gym just so he doesn't fucking leave. I want him to come to the gym because I actually want him to be in the gym. I like him. I like coaching him. I want him to PR. I want him to be healthier. And then, yeah, staying in the gym is great because then I can pay my bills. But like, if you force your members to do retention work with, your staff to do retention work with members, it will become robotic to them. And this is just my opinion. It'll become robotic and it will come off robotic from the staff and feel robotic from the member. Now, paying someone hourly to do like new lead outreach and like funnel work, that's a whole different discussion. But like, as far as like navigating the community in, it should happen kind of organically. And you want like good team members are going to want to do that anyway, because their class livelihood depends on those people that they are now around continually attending their class. Like a 5 a.m. class is shitty enough to take. Nobody wants to go to a 5 a.m. with 2 people in it. But like a regular 5 a.m. that's got 15 people in it, that's like, it's one of the most powerful classes in a gym that you can go to. Like, it's early, they're go-getters, they got to get in before work. And that's a very unique type of person. So like, if you're the person who's opening the gym, which is a shitty enough job to begin with, right? Like, you're going to want those members to be upkept, and that coach is going to typically, they should do it on their own. Now, you're going to come across coaches who are like, yo, I'm doing my hour and don't fucking ask me to do anything else. And that's fine. Every company needs like middle of the road players also. They get overlooked on opportunities. They don't, they can fall in and fill the gaps that are needed, but they're not going to be standouts. Like, the people that are looking for opportunity, that are doing the extra stuff, like, you should pour into their cup because they'll be the champions of the business. I used to coach all the classes. Then I only coached the new classes for free. So that way we could seed the new classes. And then when I saw that they were picking up steam, then I stepped out of that. And then I haven't coached in 4.5 or 5 years here. And I sometimes take classes and the members don't know that I'm the owner. And it's better. I like it that way, but I empower my staff really well to be able to do that. I'm going to speak crass for a second, so I hope I don't offend anyone, which I might. Actually, I won't say it badly. They've got a stranglehold on me, my employees, and I have one on them back. And we both are really clear about the relationship there. And that's okay, right? Like, you want your employees to be in positions of power, and you want them to know that they have those positions of power, because that's where they'll shine for you. Now, doesn't mean you got a bad egg. And if you got a bad egg, you might have to take one on the chin and step back in and fill that hole. But like, a quality employee, Katie, like, they're going to take that ball and run with it without you having to really force them to do it.
I guess I'm just looking for, I mean, I know this is supposed to be about member retention, but we're always looking for ways to incentivize our coaches and build careers for people.
Yeah.
And, we already set the baseline for the amount of money that people are making per class. And yes, that scale changes depending on whether or not they have their L2 or their L3. But I guess I'm just looking for ways to help my coaches make more money. And I'm not going to expect them to, they're my clients. Yes, they're in this coach's class, but they're,
yes, all the clients are mine. I agree. I do agree with you on that one. So I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I have one qualifying question quick. What do you pay per class on a range?
So if you have your L1, you get 20 a class. If you have your L2, you get 30 a class. Personal training sessions, we offer a really nice split, 75-25. And if you have an L2, that goes to 85, which is considerable.
Sorry, I have 2 staff members listening in, and we pay 70-30, and their eyes just fucking popped out of their head for a second. So I was sorry. I was laughing for a second. It's awesome. It's a great way to think about it. One thing you could try, and we've experimented with this, we have not implemented it yet. We built a model that is based on building attendance, not class attendance. Meaning you take the total amount of spots on a day, right? And if over the course of a week, the entire building's attendance is above a certain percentage, everyone gets a raise on their hour, and higher and higher. Now, it will cost a ton to implement that in the early days, but what will happen is then your 5:30 p.m. person's going to fill the slow 7 a.m. class because he wants to make 60 a class or 80 a class or whatever the number is. And you could work those numbers. It's something I sat down with our staff and I said, this is something we're thinking about doing. This is something that will help all of the per class employees. We have a lot of salaried people here as well, which is a whole different discussion. But that's a way to incentivize people. I have found the best way to build careers for people is to actually sit down with that person and ask them what they want their career to be.
Mhm.
Because someone who wants to work 10 hours a week and have a career in fitness doesn't have a career in fitness. They've got a career in hanging out. Right. But like
And could
somebody,
I,
yeah, go ahead, Danielle. Sorry.
no, I was just going to interject too, because I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole. I mean, and for those of you who are listening to, like, building and supporting your coaches teams is also part of helping to support your core offering, your class, and helps with retention. Katie, off the top of my head, and I made a note, Invictus 202, which is located in DC, they have a model where they use their coaches in terms of a follow-up process based on the class times that Vincent talked to. Also, CrossFit Lorton, they've experimented with a revenue sharing based on attendance with their coaches, where they have the expectation that there's a newsletter, there's other incentives. Coaches, are involved in bringing members in. So that might be two owners that I could connect you directly with to have a conversation about.
Awesome.
Vince, I cut you off, but I wanted to pause here for a second, guys. And I know we're getting to like 2:40 and we haven't dove too much into retention strategies, but I wanted to just list really quickly and then get you guys talking. When I'm thinking of retention strategies too, I'm thinking of what are the things like class attendance, committed clubs, like ways of recognizing your members' accomplishments, PRs, athlete of the week, month, affiliate milestones, birthdays, maybe it's goal review sessions. Like the list is endless of those. So I wanted to get you all chiming in on what's working for you. Where are you finding success with highlighting folks, or and at the end of this call too, I'm going to do a follow-up and just have a list for you to share. I'm on social media all the time looking through all the affiliates with their day-to-day stuff, but you might be more in a bubble. So there's a lot out there that you can do. So anyone want to take the baton and just share some things that they consistently do with their membership? No? Okay.
No. Stay silent. Somebody share. I could easily answer, but someone's got to be able to say something they do.
We have a committed club.
Here we go. All right. What's your measurement on it? Like,
attendances for actual class times, open gym doesn't count. It's a minimum of 15 classes per month. You get recognized as social media post. There is a monthly, it's basically a raffle off of those names who get some sort of a prize. It's different every month. We've partnered with other local businesses this year, which is really cool. So we have an athletic shoe store down the road from us, gift card. We had a local like meal prep company gift card. What else? All kinds of local business prize at the end of the month for that. And then at the end of the year, there's a limited edition, you only get it if you earn it, t-shirt for people who make the entire year of Committed Club.
That's great. Audrey had chimed in too. We have a gold standard. It's 16 check-in visits per month, or 16 plus. At the Christmas party each year in December, we give out annual gold standards awards, which earns a special t-shirt to recognize them in the gym. And annually, they need to earn 190 checked-in visits. That's great. Does anyone have anything? I'm seeing like t-shirts. Richard?
We do Committed Club, 16 visits, and we give a cash prize of $50 and then offer them 30 minutes of personal training with a coach of their choice. And, that helps sell personal training on the side. If you can get Shonda a PR on her clean, people are going to be like, whoa, that's doable in 30 minutes. And then you're selling that for $60 for the coaches. I let them keep all of that, so the coaches are excited to do it and help people, and then they can sell that. Personal programming. And then if you make 4 months in a row, we do a quarterly one where we give $100 and an hour personal training session on top of that. And it just really helps people want to show up. That was a big change that we made in January, and our attendance has rose big time. They just love getting called out. We bought like a WWE championship belt that they get to take home for the month and keep that. So we get social media posts that they get to run around with that and have a lot of fun. It's just stuff like that. Every birthday gets a post on Facebook so the members can celebrate them. When you try and do an event every 45 days, we're going to Chicken and Pickle to play pickleball this after Murph, this coming up on Memorial Day, and just always trying to keep people wanting to be there. So that's our strategy.
That's great. Has anyone done like an athlete of the week or athlete of the month?
We do an athlete of the month as well every month and try and just spotlight them, another social media post, and just keep it real simple on those too.
I recently went to a gym and there's the first spot when you pull in and it says athlete of the month. And so when you're athlete of the month, you get the best parking spot. And it's like a huge sign. So it's like walking out and you're just like a boss. You know, I think it's a pretty cool recognition there. Layla said we do birthdays on social media as well as have a sheet when you enter the gym each month. Does anyone post birthdays on a whiteboard, you know, depending on the size of your membership? Or I see Aaron's hand went up.
We also have an old bingo hopper, and so when they come in on their birthday, they get to spin the hopper, and part of what's in there is 6 months free membership. But another end to that is 200 burpees, so it just makes it fun. And then the bulk of the stuff in the middle is, you know, 20 push-ups or, you know, maybe a kill cliff or something like that. So that's fun for them. We also do weekly challenges, which helps them, encourage them to come in on a regular basis for the weekly challenge, and then they get gift certificates to some of our local. We try to really work with our local small businesses, and so they get gift certificates for things like that. But so that's fun. The birthday hopper is a lot of fun.
That's great. Did you come up with that idea?
Yeah.
Very creative. That's awesome. All right. At my affiliate, we were doing a monthly challenge, and what I liked about a monthly challenge, and we were strategic with why we would pick them. But for example, if it was a rowing challenge, you know, if you keep up with Concept 2, they always have their holiday rowing challenge. We found it was an opportunity, and this might vary based on what your gym setup is, but we didn't have this open gym. But we had our classes set up where we had time in between, but it just gave everyone an opportunity where there wasn't a structured class to just hang out and connect. And it was like wildfire with these challenges. And then you'd pull in some other people to, like, maybe it might be the same 2 women on the side with their rowing. And then I would kind of push in another person who wasn't as chit-chatty with other people. And it was like, they became a trio, you know, for life. And so it just was another thing that we saw a lot of success with, whether it's like a burpee challenge, row challenge, or whatnot. That's my contribution. Anyone else? Anything? These are some creative ideas. Love it. Richard, I love that. With the hopper.
We also do, we do like a post-holiday party. Our holiday party is in like January, just to make sure more people can come. But we'll do, in addition to people's committed club t-shirts, we'll do like awards, just recognizing individuals for different things. Some of them are silly. Like one last year was most likely to flip off a coach. Just silly things. We did the spirit of Summa. We did fittest family. So it's not just like people's physical accomplishments, like most PRs and stuff like that, but some of it's like people who show good sportsmanship, I guess, like people who are showing up for the community, and that kind of thing.
Gilliam had noted, and sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, but he said, do you have any perks for members staying more than a defined time? I think this can help members to continue attending. one of the things I've seen at a gym is they have a milestone plaque, and they have them put up on the wall. I think there's like mixed tiles you can use, but it's a picture, and they have like 1 year, 3 year, 5, and so forth. And it becomes the perimeter of their wall. It's Boston CrossFit. Yeah, I put that on the Northeast handle last year, a while ago. But I thought that was cool. I've also seen gyms do milestone recognitions with coins, with Yeti mugs. I wanted to, since we only had 10 minutes here, guys, I think that was a lot of things. But one of the things that I struggled with, and I'll be vulnerable here, with how do you keep memberships, for example, members' PRs relative? How do you keep them relative and communicate from class to class when you have these coaches? What systems of communication do you have for that? So for example, at one gym, I used a Facebook group to go back and forth with my coaches' teams, you know, when we were tracking like what happened in classes that was noteworthy to put up on social media, or to reach out. Hey, Danielle, someone just PR'd, you know, and then I was managing a lot of the emails and would then write a personal email to that person. You know, that's where things can get tricky, and it could be hard to be consistent, whether it's the anniversaries, birthdays, a lot of that stuff you can automate with your managing your software, even including MindBody. But like, what ways do you communicate with your members? Is it through phone, email, and whether your coaches are doing that? And I see Richard's hand up, so right at you.
So one thing I've recently changed, and I think it works a lot, just it's been about 2 months, is instead of texting, I take the time, and it's actually easier, and record a voice text and send it to them. That way they get the pause in your voice and the emotion that's coming through. And it still leaves them the option to text that. They don't feel like it's a phone call when you bother them during the day. And they seem to really appreciate that a lot more when they hear your voice and know that it's not Chat GPT or something like that that's just sending them an automated message. You took 30 seconds out of your day to reward them with a voice text. And I have a 180-day journey that I go and start right from the get-go. 1 week, 1 month, 45 days, I handwrite a letter then. So hoping that they hang it on their fridge, and then their wife wants to come join the gym too. And just contact them every month and just try and create someone, show them that we care and we want them there. And that's the difference between any CrossFit box and a gym that they can go pay $35 for and be a member there. You know, the gyms, they don't want people there because their equipment will break. We want them here. So I like to show them that and just really show them we appreciate them and celebrate PRs. We talked about that. I make my coaches, when someone comes up and tell them, announce it to the class at the end of the class, and then brag about them on the athletes page. You know, it's one thing to have your coach say, "Oh, that's great," but when your peers say it, it hits a lot harder. And you're going to remember that for a lot longer. So you want to show up the next day and hopefully get another one to get that adrenaline rush of everybody saying good job. So that's what we do.
That's great. I mean, depending on your demographic too, at one of my affiliates, it was an older demographic. I mean, truth be told, I don't have a personal Instagram account. And most of them didn't utilize their Instagram account. I'm talking like 45 plus over at the time. So that's also important, because that's so different than my first affiliate, which was super young. So it's like everyone wants that validation. And when they see themselves on Instagram, they want to share and put that out. And that's a way of spreading the word to others in your community. So I think that's something to consider when it's like, how much time are you investing? You know, and again, social media is a whole other topic, and how to use that to build your business. But going back to like retention and giving acknowledgement to your members and recognition. I had Layla saying, for coach communication, we use Facebook group. Anyone use Slack at all? Katie, Slack. We use Slack for our teams. Vincent, can you describe, when I first met with Vincent, he was sharing with me this technology in text. And I'll be honest here. One of the things is at one point we had 400 members at my gym, and they all had my phone number. So in terms of another call for another time about Danielle needing to set her personal boundaries, I was 27 at the time, and I wanted to be friends with everyone. Fast forward to when I'm 40 at my other affiliate. I don't want everyone to have my phone number and call me all the time. So that's where I found it really, I struggled with, and same thing goes for now with affiliates. You hate to say this, but you want to have boundaries in your life, and you also want to be personable. So that's kind of where, nowadays we're getting bombarded. I don't know if anyone on this call is getting bombarded, but when it comes to marketing texts or anything you put out there, they're going to be hitting up your phone. But that's the first place you're going to look, because it's all attached. Our phones are attached to us. So that's kind of like where Vince and I started chatting, because he's like, well, that's what I worked on. And that was one of my communication tools I used at my affiliate. So Vince, can you just kind of share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so similar to you, right? Like my cell phone was on our Google, like it was a fucking disaster, because I was the phone call from new leads. I was the phone call from people trying to sell us stuff. Like a member wanted to come late to class, they would call. It was just a complete headache. But what that did was our first 150 and round up to a couple of years of people leaving and moving, I probably had 250 plus phone numbers in my phone of members or past members or like on and off members. And I was doing all of that retention and I didn't notice it. Like I was talking to people outside of the gym all the time, and they were out to dinner and they were like, what should I eat? And they were traveling and they're like, do you know any good gyms? And like, I was doing all of that through my phone, which was exhausting and had no boundaries. So I built a platform that does all of that, and it automates and uses a number of like AI tools and actual proprietary stuff that does human communication around health and fitness. And like our trainers use it to upsell their clients. We use it in new client journeys. But what we had found was, and especially in COVID, we had used this. So we did not do Zoom. I don't believe in Zoom workouts. I think it was the biggest scam on the planet. For anyone who saved their business with that, bravo. We did none of it. Every single person, every staff member in our gym was given 20 or 30 members to try to maintain relationship with. One can make the argument it's why we lost 95% of our business. Again, conversation for a different day. But so I built a platform that gyms all over the country use. And it could be, comparable to like a WhatsApp group, but there's no automation, or a Facebook group that also has no automation, or no way to scale that. And then no separation from your phone, really. So like gyms will be issued their own phone number, either individually or for coaches. And then you could use that to walk yourself down that journey. Like Richard, you said you have a 180-day journey that you navigate. Like we go out and build and help gyms build 60, 90, 120 1-year journeys for their specific use case and value prop within their gym, and then help people walk their members down that. And what that does is that actually does, 80 or 90% of the difficult lift of maintaining relationship and keeping that open contact. And whether you do that manually or you do it on your own, or you have your client, like I found that what we sell in the 1 hour is all the same, guys. Like, I don't know if anyone here's a rock star programmer. I despise writing programming, so I don't mind criticizing it, but like, it's all the same, whether you're doing Pilates or fucking CrossFit or like Zumba. What someone does for their hour, they're going to get that high. It's all the other stuff that matters. And it's typically how we navigate that human connection to the person. And you got to lean on what you can. I just happened to do it via text and ended up building an entire separate company to do that for people and magnify and augment that piece for you.
Yeah.
Does anyone here like text with every one of their clients on their personal phone? Right? Like, no, I got a good no there. I like that. Layla, you're probably the smart one in the room. I have found that if someone, and that's why I empower my coaches to do it, but if someone actually has a human connection with someone in the building, the reality and chances of them really just canceling for something short of moving or like breaking their leg, it's really few and far in between. And when you think about retention, you want your cancels to be like 90% moving or something you had no involvement in. They moved, they like broke their ankle, whatever, right? Like something that's completely out of the box. Not that like they want to go do Soul Cycle or like, they're going to try the affiliate down the street. So if you could get your cancels to be things that are completely out of your control, that's where you want to end up in retention. I just found that making people feel human, whether it's via text or via voice or through gifts or whatever that is, like that's what you've got to lean on, and you got to find your superpower to do that. And I just happened to do it with text and then built an automated way to do that.
Richard said, what is your platform, Vincent?
I'm gonna throw the website in there.
And guys, I'll follow up with anything you want to send over to me, you know, and not to say, hey, don't explore Vince's platform, but when I was years into my affiliate, I was avoiding the calls from my mind body rep to share with me all the updates and features on Mind Body. Like he would call me once a week. Like I was like deliberately trying to avoid him at this point, but there might be a lot of capabilities to start out really basic that you're not even leveraging right now, just to make your life a little bit easier and be more consistent. But on that note, you know, there are now, with technology changing so quickly, and even when it comes to like the sales process, we're not just competing, like we're in this bigger ecosystem of fitness where the other larger chains have it figured out, where you get responded to within 2 minutes. If you're sitting on a lead for more than 24 hours, like depending on where you're located, again, that might vary, but it always puts us in a better position to have a system where we can be really fast with our response and be consistent with our reach out. Sorry, Vince.
No, you're spot on. I think I know we're at time. We laugh at big box fitness. At least I did for years, right? And a lot of them are clients of mine. I've probably spoke to every gym brand in the country, from a corporate level down. For all of you, even myself, like I try to go to 1 to 2 new gyms or new brands every single month as a user and just figure out what they are doing different. Because you'd be surprised. Like, again, like Richard and I would vomit if I had to send voice notes. If someone sends me a voice note, I purposely don't listen to it. Right. But like, that's me. And that's and that's the beauty of it. That is like literally the beauty of why we are affiliates and not franchisees. Because if voice notes were required, I would quit, but it works. And I would strongly recommend, and this just drills back to retention, like go to your competitors. And I don't necessarily mean affiliates, but like go out and actually experiment with every other type of brand out there. Like someone mentioned push press. I love push press. Dan and that team is amazing. I think that they're doing a really good job in like trying, and we don't even use them at my gym, which is a whole different, like the point I bring up is you want to go experiment, because you might go to a gym that uses push press and is doing something that you didn't even know you could do with the platform that you have for your benefit. That's like been my biggest education, is just being in hundreds, if not thousands of gyms around the country and world. So,
yeah. And I think too, like knowing like where your membership base is, like, and how you're managing it. You might, if your vision is to grow a team and empower your team to take on a lot of your leads, like I was in DC, so we need to have a big focus on, based on our churn, with it being a really transient area. We had to be pumping in new members. We were losing about 20 a month and bringing in 35 a month. And then that 20 went down lower over time, but it's still, we were the hub of like a working center in DC. So with that said, we needed to have a staff with those leads. And because of that, like having a system, and when the gym was larger in membership, it was something that we planned for. Whereas my other affiliate, I was like, I'm going to run it exactly like that gym. And then I got a CRM system through UpLaunch, and I'm like, this is overkill. And I want it to be more personal. And I had like a smaller team of coaches who weren't working full time. So, you know, kind of know your demographic, know what your vision is, like where you see yourself as an affiliate with growth when it comes to exploring some of these things. And, you know, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, I think it's important to be open-minded to pivoting and looking ahead for that, because you don't want to be doing the same thing unless you're really happy where you're at, you know, and your members are happy. But I think there's always ways to kind of move forward and evolve, because we have to evolve in our industry. But please, like, I'm always here, you know, your reps are there to continue the conversation. If there's anything that you want to connect about, I'm going to personally reach out to all of you. I'm going to include Vincent's information as well. Thank you, Vince. You're an incredible resource. And I just want to thank all of you for your time today. Is there, before we part, are there any pressing questions today that anyone wants to bring up? And if you need to log off, you can log off, but I'm happy to stay on for a bit to dive into any questions you have. Well, if not, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm not logging off though. Feel free to stay on. And it was great seeing some new faces on the call. Vince, don't leave me yet. I want to just say hi since we're always on a phone call.
Someone did ask, how can they reach out to you?
And I'm going to be following up with all of you too. Thanks. Putting my email in the chat here, guys.
Katie and Richard, thanks for being good sports.
Yeah, thank you. All three of you, Aaron.
Sorry for hogging the conversation.
No, I really appreciate you sharing. That's it. You know, it's the roundtables were up to like 9 people. It was more intimate, and you can kind of share similar to our group call, Katie. But these are like kind of awkward because then you got a lot of videos off. And I have to be honest, when we were first doing these larger Zoom calls, I'm like, I'm not being myself right now, especially when I know this is being recorded and put in out. I'm just going to share this link, you know, via email. I'm not publishing it on YouTube. Some recordings I'll publish or not, but it's, you know. Richard, where are you based out of?
Oh, you're muted.
So
Oh,
we are right in the middle of Oklahoma City.
You said Oklahoma. Okay, got it. Yeah. And Aaron, where are you based out of?
Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Kentucky. I feel like we're outsiders, Vincent. I mean, it's no surprise that you're a New Yorker.
I've learned that I actually scream New York, and I do a really good job trying to be neutral, but I guess such is life, right? So
funny story. Vince was at one point at my affiliate. I don't even know what year it was. Was it like 2011?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was like we were like baby CrossFitters then.
Yeah.
That's when I refer to myself as 27.
Yeah, exactly.
But
well, Katie, how long have you guys been open?
June will be 11 years.
Oh my God. Congratulations. You're older than us. I'm not even special.
I haven't been around the whole time. This one has been though. This is my goal.
All right. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I feel affiliates our age got to ride a fun upswing.
It's been a wild ride.
It's been a wild ride. That is for certain. So no, you're awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Well, you know, depending on where you are, like if you're a really small town and there's not, you know, there's always been Planet Fitness or Gold's Gym, but in DC, the whole landscape was completely transformed, and it really started in 2012. And CrossFit had its foot in the door, is like that first boutique experience beyond just like yoga and Pilates. And then it was like, now you see the metabolic and the F45s and the Orange Theories and, you know, on and on and on. And they just have these systems that are like, you know, they're well-oiled machines. And a lot of us have limited bandwidth and started out smaller and might not have had this like larger vision for where they have and technology. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I just upgraded my phone. I was fighting it. I hate technology, but you kind of have to keep up with that to an extent. Aaron, when did you affiliate?
2008.
Yeah. So you've been through it.
Longest.
Yeah, I've been through a lot. Been through a lot.
Love that.
Yeah.
Times have you changed your website? Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, how many times have you changed your website since?
I think we've changed it three or four times. And we're getting
Good.
ready to change it again.
Okay.
I had a question, I just lost it on as far as retention. I had a question. I lost it though. It'll come back to me.
Oh no.
I know.
Bring it back.
It was I think it was for Vincent, in regard to something he said. I'm trying to look at my notes and try to remember it. As far as like, I think it was Vincent was talking about, and your coaches and them just taking over kind of their class hours.
Yep.
You know, that's, I like that unique, just, it just kind of happens, you know, we see that happen, but